Who would be the next Chief Justice. So the probability that we are not going to have a permanent Chief Justice would last until maybe September or October. And this is very dangerous, to have an acting Chief Justice at times when there are very important constitutional issues that may arise, not only pertaining to the elections in 2010, but other important issues that may have to be resolved by the court. Then we would not be able to resolve this more judiciously without a permanent Chief Justice.
Thank you, Attorney Lambino. Now, Senator Drilon, from the negative side, you have 2 minutes, 30 seconds for your constructive speech on why President Arroyo's appointing the next Supreme Court Chief Justice is not constitutional.
The motion before this body that President Arroyo should appoint the next Chief Justice must fail, as it is unconstitutional. The President cannot appoint the next Chief Justice during the constitutional ban on midnight appointments. There are two provisions in our Constitution which touch on the issue. Section 4, Paragraph 1, Article 8 provides that any vacancy in the Supreme Court shall be filled within 90 days from the occurrence thereof. On the other hand, Section 15, Article 7 prohibits the President from making midnight appointments. 2 months immediately before the next presidential election and up to the end of his term, a president or acting president shall not make appointments except temporary appointments to executive positions when continued vacancies therein will prejudice public service or endanger public safety. In the 1998 case of Mateo Valenzuela and Placido Vallarta, the Supreme Court held that during the period of the ban or the prohibition against midnight appointments, the President cannot make such appointments. The President is neither required to make appointments to the court nor allowed to do so during the last 90 days of the President's term. The 90-day period to appoint members of the Supreme Court only means that the President must fill the vacancies within the time frame provided, unless to do so would violate the ban on midnight appointments. The prohibition on midnight appointments starts on March 10 until June 30, 2010. The 90-day period to fill the vacancy commences on May 17 and expires on August 17. The new president, therefore, still has 45 days after June 30 to make that appointment. Moreover, the 90-day period within which to fill the vacancy in the Supreme Court was interpreted by the Judicial and Bar Council on May 8, 1998 as being suspended during the period of the ban on midnight appointments. The argument that the ban on midnight appointments refers only to the appointments in the executive branch is without basis, for in that case cited of Valenzuela, the ban on midnight appointments was applied by the Supreme Court against appointments made by the judiciary in the judiciary by President Ramos during the prohibited period. Finally, under Section 261 of the Omnibus Election Code, it is an election offense to promote any government official 45 days before the regular election.
Attorney Lambino, you may ask Senator Drilon your question. Senator Drilon, you have 1 minute to answer it.
Mr. Senate President, are you not aware that there are two kinds of prohibitive appointments during that particular period as provided for under Section 15 of Article 7? One is appointments in order to buy votes, and second is appointments in order to for partisan purposes. Which of this particular part of the prohibition would the appointment of the Chief Justice apply?
The Supreme Court has ruled in the Vallarta case that indeed the ill effects of such appointments made far outweigh the benefits that could accrue from the same, given the fact that election-related cases can be influenced and decided by the appointed official who owe loyalty to that appointing power. And it is on this basis that the Supreme Court ruled that the appointments to the judiciary are covered by the ban. The provision is very clear. The general prohibition against appointments 90 days before the end of the president's term. Remember, this happens only once every 6 years. Yes. Once every 6 years, that prohibition applies. And it is only then that the ban against midnight appointments can apply. The only exception is appointments to executive position when public safety so requires.
Just a clarificatory question, Mr. Senate President. Did the Supreme Court explicitly state that in the Vallarta case, the constitutional ban applies both to the executive and to the judiciary?
It applies both to the executive and the judiciary, with the exception that the only exception is that the appointments can be made in the executive branch in an acting capacity where public safety so requires.
All right, we need to pause for a few words from our sponsors. Square Off the Six Debates. Battle Chief Justice returns after this. Welcome back. Attorney Lambino from the affirmative side. You have 2.5 minutes to argue the necessity of President Arroyo's appointing the next Chief Justice.
Well, remember that there are only 15 members of the court, including that of the Chief Justice. There is a possibility that all of the members of the court, or majority of them, will retire during that particular period, or perhaps resign, or God forbid, something bad is going to happen to majority of the members of the court. If we are going to apply the prohibition of appointing members of the Supreme Court or of the Chief Justice, then there is a possibility that we are not going to have any Supreme Court at all during that particular time until the next president comes into office. The next president will only come into office on June 30 of 2010. The House of Representatives and the Senate of the Philippines will convene on the 4th Monday of July. By then, we are not going to have yet a Judicial and Bar Council who will submit the name of the next Chief Justice or the members of the Supreme Court. It will be anathema to the interest of the public to left this issue hanging on the balance and let the next president appoint the next Chief Justice or the next members of the Supreme Court. It will be dangerous for our country and for our safety that we are going to leave a vacuum with no appointments of the next Chief Justice. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very clear that this particular provision of Article 7, Section 15 applies only to executive position, not to the members of the court, neither to the members of the judiciary. While it was cited by Senate President Drilon, that particular part of the resolution of the court in this case of Vallarta, the Supreme Court likewise in the same case said that it may be imperative that there are instances when it is important for the ban not to apply to the appointment of members of the Supreme Court. It is for this reason that we should allow the President to appoint the next Chief Justice, because the appointment of the members of the court, more particularly that of the Chief Justice, cannot just be subjected to political discussions. There has to be no partisanship, there has to be no politicking in this particular issue. It is not good to speculate who will be the next Chief Justice to be appointed by the present President or by the next President. It is best to preserve the integrity of the court.
Senator Drilon, your question, and Attorney Lambino, 1 minute to answer.
Would Attorney Lambino agree that since the Supreme Court is a collegial body, the absence of one member of the court, even the Chief Justice, would not prevent the court from deciding on cases, and in fact, as long as there is a majority of the members of the court present, the Supreme Court can continue to function?
I agree with that proposition. But remember, if we are going to have only an acting Chief Justice and let the appointment of the next Chief Justice to the next President, then the acting Chief Justice, who is supposed to be the head of the Supreme Court, remember that the Chief Justice is the presiding officer of the Presidential Electoral Tribunal. The acting Chief Justice may possibly kowtow to the next president, may possibly do some acts of politicking in order that he is going to get the anointment coming from the next president. That is not going to be preserving the integrity and independence of the judiciary, more particularly that of the Supreme Court. So it is important that we should always have a permanent Chief Justice. At no point in time, since Chief Justice Claudio Tihanque assumed office